Alright guys, welcome back. I hope you all had a very good Christmas and very good New Year. I know I did. I had a very busy Christmas, to say the least. As you might have noticed from the lack of new content on this channel. But now I'm back and ready to start regularly pumping out these videos again, now that Christmas is out of the way. Shoutouts to all my new subscribers. There's like 500 of you guys now. That's absolutely ridiculous. I didn't think this was going to be anywhere near as popular as it's turning out to be, so that's really cool. I'm pretty motivated now just to get more of this content out to you guys as quick as I can. So before I get into this video, I was just going to say, like, what I'm planning to do, whether or not it'll work out this way or not, is basically record new content more or less every weekend and then put that content out throughout the week, so that hopefully what that'll do is create kind of a constant source, or a constant stream of of new content for you guys, so there's not sort of this huge space of time where you're not getting any new tutorials or anything like that. So that's the plan. What it is we're going to be looking at today is following on from our last tutorial on basic projectiles. I promised to follow up to that video where I would explain a few more slightly in-depth things to do with projectiles. I'm actually going to explain something that's actually, I suppose, quite a bit simple, but not. It does go a little bit further than what we had before. Just for a few little things that you might want to do with your shooting mechanic if you are making a top-down shooter, just based on top-down shooters that are already out there. Because if I run the game that we had at the end of the last tutorial, assuming it compiles any time today. There we go. Okay, so assuming, what we had before was this, where you could move around and you press space, and every time you press space it would shoot, but if you held space, you only got one projectile every time you press space. Now, that's not really, maybe that's how you want your game to be. If you want to have to mash space for something, or you have to mash a button or whatever, then you've already got the system you want. But for a lot of top-down shooters, what people will typically do is have a system whereby you hold the button down and you get a constant stream of bullets. In fact, a lot of shooters I played recently have it. You don't even have to press a button, because optimally you're always firing anyway. So some games have actually literally stepped them and removed that requirement entirely, which might be a thing to think about. But that's more of a game design thing. But either way, I was going to show you guys, first of all, just how to create that kind of system, whereby while you're holding space, you're constantly shooting. You might, from what you've learned before, be able to do this in the sense that you might think, well, if I repeat the code for shooting, which is in our space thing, instance create, this instance create bullet thing, if we just put that into the step event, under like a keyboard check for vk_space or something like that, or and then that would surely just create a bullet every frame, and it would. But that's probably still not what you want, because you would then be firing almost this constant beam of bullets out, and you probably want some kind of delay or some kind of space in there. So this gives me a good opportunity to teach you guys about alarms, because this is the way I would do it anyway. There's a number of ways you could do this. You could do it in the step event, use counters or all kinds of things, but the easiest way to do most sort of like repeated timing based things in your game is to use things called alarms. So let me just sort of demonstrate first of all how we would start doing this. As you may have noticed, I've made the font a lot bigger in the execute code window now, so hopefully I won't have to do quite as much sort of deep zooming in stuff for you guys to be able to see exactly what's going on in the code. But instead of this line here, we'll leave this line here for a second because we'll want to copy and paste it in a minute. But what we're going to do instead of this line of code is set up an alarm that whenever that alarm goes off, we'll fire our bullet, instead of firing our bullet whenever we press the spacebar. So what an alarm is is an event, basically, I suppose is the best way of describing it. So it's one of these like events over here that is basically on a timer that you set based on a number of frames. So if I set something like alarm 0 equals 5, for example, now that would set our 0th alarm. It counts to something like 10, I think, but like the very first one is 0, so that's the only one we need at the moment. So we set alarm number 0 to be 5, and then 5 frames from when we set that, the alarm would go off, and then the actions in the event that we can add over here, like if I just close this quickly, add event alarm 0, like all these actions here now that this alarm 0 would go off. However, I mean, that's not exactly how we need to do it though. What we need to do is say if alarm 0 is equal to -1. Now, that might be a bit confusing, so let me explain what that means. What alarm does when we set it to something like 5 or 10, every frame of your game, the alarm will tick down by 1 until it hits 0. When your alarm hits 0, all the actions go off, and then the alarm is set to -1. Which means that it's not counting down anymore, it's not counting, it's not going to do anything, and so on and so forth. If we set that to 0, it would be when the alarm triggers, but that's not what we want. We want to know when the alarm is not set. So when the alarm is not being set, we set the alarm to 5 when we're pressing the spacebar. And in fact, we don't want to use the press event anymore now. What we want to do is use just the space event. So whenever this button is being held, from now on we want to say if the alarm 0 is not set, then set it to 5 frames. So 5 frames from when we press the spacebar, all the things in alarm 0 will go off. So what we need that to be is simply this line of code, which is the line which shoots our bullet. So if we remove that now, we go to alarm 0, code, execute code, and put that line of code in there. And then what we also need to do, oh no, I think that should be it actually, if I remember correctly. Okay, cool. So now if I press spacebar, yeah, and you hold spacebar, you can see that there's now a delay in between each bullet, but we're firing a constant stream of bullets out, which is probably, a much better system for if you're doing a top-down shooter. So, I mean, now you've got that, I mean, you can vary the space in between these bullets just by changing the length of time on your alarm. So if you go to your object player and you say, when you press space, if the alarm isn't set yet, set it to, 9, then when we compile that, you can see the distance between each bullet is much larger than it was before. So, now that we've done that, something we can look at doing now is an effect that's in a lot of top-down shooters, which is when you collect upgrades and stuff especially. You don't just fire one stream of bullets, you would often fire like multiple streams of bullets, and sometimes those bullets would go like in different directions, and you'd create like this like cone of like streams of bullets. So I mean, that's a very easy effect to replicate in GameMaker as well. So if I show you how to do that, I mean, you'll start to explain a few more concepts, and you'll be able to understand how to create some of these sort of special effects by yourself. So, well, at the moment what we do whenever the alarm goes off is we fire a single bullet. Now say we don't want to do that, we want to fire 3 bullets that all go in like a cone shape of directions. So I mean, first thing we need to do is simply copy this line of code like 3 times. So, well, twice. So now we create 3 bullets instead of 1. Obviously, though, what this will do is we'll create them in the exact same place, and they'll fire at the exact same speed in the exact same direction, so it'll just look like they kind of overlap at the moment. So we need to be able to do things to these different bullets to make them go in different directions or behave differently. So the way we can do that is by using sort of a special little trick you can do with instance create, which is if I do this, that's equally as valid a line of code as this one is. Now what that says is bullet 1 equals instance create x y minus 16 object bullet. What that means is when we create this bullet, we assign that bullet to the variable bullet 1. So if we do anything in this code now, like if this object makes a reference to bullet 1, it's making a reference to this object that it's just created. And we can do the same thing with these lines of code. So we can have bullet 2, bullet 3. So now we've got bullet 1, bullet 2, and bullet 3 that are being created, and now what we can do is simply set bullet 2 dot direction equals, and now this number one might confuse you a little bit, but I'm gonna say 100, and bullet 3 I'm gonna set the direction to be 80. Now how direction works is like if you don't have, like, direction is basically like the second component of your object's velocity. You know, everything has a direction and a speed. So I mean, if we set our direction to be 0, its default direction when its speed is raised is to just move to the right. Like if you just set speed, if you don't set h speed, you don't set v speed, you just set speed to be a value, and it will travel, your object will travel in that speed, in the direction that is your direction variable at whatever you set your speed to. So now direction is a bit weird in that it's in like degrees, but it counts sort of counterclockwise from right. It's really confusing. I'm not really sure why it's laid out this way, but like basically a direction of 0 would be straight to the right. A direction of 90 would be straight up. 180 would be left. 270 would be down. So like it's 360 degrees going counterclockwise from right, which is very strange. You would expect it to at least be clockwise, so if it started at right, it would go something like 0, 90, 180, 270. Personally, I always expect it to be like 0 to be straight up, and then like 90 would be right, and then like 180 would be down, and so on. But that's, don't ask me why it's laid out that way, it just is. And so the way we want to shoot up is to shoot, so to shoot directly up we would shoot 90 degrees up, but we want to give bullet 2 and bullet 3 a little bit of an offset. So we're going to set them to 180 respectively, and bullet 1 direction can equal 90. Now of course this means we need to make a slight change in our bullet object, so that instead of setting our v speed to be -8, we're just setting our speed to be 8, so that it takes the direction that we're setting, and it goes with that direction. So okay, now if we hit F5, now when we press space, yep, we're creating this stream, this cone stream of bullets that are now spreading out and shooting like in a big arc. That's the sort of thing you might do when you collect like an upgrade or something in your game. I mean, if you've seen how I use if statements and things like that, you'll probably be able to work out how to do that kind of thing fairly soon. And that's that. So that's just a couple of little things about shooting that you could do a little bit differently, and it's just, you know, just to give you a little bit of inspiration, maybe a few sort of ideas on how you can kind of modify and change the way your ship shoots in your top-down shooter, and hopefully gives you a basic understanding of how like assigning an instance you create to a variable works, so bullet 1, bullet 2, and so on, and how direction and speed works, and hopefully how alarms work. Alarms are a very important thing to understand. They're incredibly useful. So yeah, that's that. That's some more advanced sort of shooting tips for you there, and I'll see you next time, guys.